for a lot of people is when the franchise jumped the shark, basically.
Okay, got it. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah,
14's the MMO.
Yeah,
I know
that's
that.
the one that
Okay.
I've just recently started playing.
Also,
Right.
11. 11's the MMO, but I don't think it really exists anymore.
Yeah, I only know about 14, so I can imagine 11 doesn't matter.
It's old. It came out in like 2001 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's
before
supported
World
at
War.
all there anymore. 2002. Sorry, I'm lying.
Oh, that's still before World of Warcraft.
Really? When did World of Warcraft come out?
I think 06, 05.
2004, November 2004. So you're right. Final Fantasy XI does actually have a couple of years on it. It surprises me a little bit because I'd always thought that they were sort of like jumping on a trend that World of Warcraft had started. But
yeah, 04 looks like. Yeah, I am also surprised.
No, Final Fantasy is going to be mega loud, so I'm going to turn that down a bit. And I may need to turn Mr. A down just a tad because I think he's a bit loud on my own.
Okay. I'm going to listen to the stream for a second.
Alright. Test. Does it sound alright? I'm not listening through the stream, so.
I think if I would change, I would make the game a little quieter compared to the people. But it's alright. It's alright even as it is.
I've turned it down a lot more.
About to die. Somebody help him, what the fuck?
I've also installed mods on this, Mr. A style, so...
Alright.
Nothing, it's just HD mods, and... because there were a few issues with the port on launch, so I've just altered added HD mods and sorted out a couple of other things on it. Like it only used 2 GB of RAM, which was it caused a lot of issues, so I added a mod which fixes that as well.
Yeah, I had that problem in Fear, so...
Yeah, hopefully the FF13 mods here are a little more stable than the Fear ones.
Yes, that would be ideal.
Oh yeah, and the FMV sequences like these, they've been stretched, but they're supposed to be 1080p. I don't know if this one is specifically, but the other ones were like really, really low resolution because it's basically a PS3 direct port to PC, so they didn't bother to upgrade or upscale anything.
Got it.
That's just Square in a nutshell because they're awful at porting games. So yeah, does it sound alright?
Last I checked. Let me check again.
We need Rame here. He's the sound master.
Yeah, with his impeccable hearing. I'll host it on Discord as well, so that you can be my real time. Just give us a second.
Yeah, it sounds good from what I can tell. Yeah.
Good.
It's hard because I'm hearing you guys talk through Discord and through the stream at the same time.
Well, if you want to mute us, deafen yourself on here, and then me and Mr. A will talk for a second while you sort it out. I should be live on the stream as well. On the Discord, sorry.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy XIII. Funny that a game called Final Fantasy has so many sequels. But that's a joke nobody's made before.
Yeah, I'm gonna say. Oh yeah, that's as well. I've had to change. I had to install a mod that has the PlayStation button prompts because I'm using a PS4 controller, and for some reason, this only had the Xbox ones or the keyboard.
Yeah,
which was just
I think a lot of games that are PC ports only have the Xbox button prompts, which is very annoying.
It's pretty common anyways, yes, because at least if they're older, the presumption was that you would only have an Xbox controller, because you have to get like third-party programs to get a PS3 controller to work with your PC games.
Yes, you still do, actually. That hasn't changed, unfortunately. But
yeah, and it seems like they messed up your PS3 controller too, because I have used one, and now sometimes when I'm playing a game on my actual PlayStation 3, the controller just acts as if I'm like mashing random buttons.
Oh, weird.
That's
terrible. That's
yeah. I was playing Dark Souls, and I was scared that I would like accidentally aggro one of the NPCs because of it.
Oh, I think that's just Dark Souls. It just tries to make the game challenging. But
True.
So yeah, not really much to say about this at the start, except it's the
those
best.
are very nice looking clouds.
With the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I do think the graphics that are showcased in this first sequence are pretty impressive, even considering they're kind of old.
Sure, yeah,
that's how
aside, they do look
I
nice.
remember feeling about it when I last started this game up. So yeah, I mean, I guess we can introduce the game a bit. We're playing Final Fantasy XIII, which is often popularly considered to be one of the weaker Final Fantasy games, or even like sort of the point when the franchise became bad for a lot of people. But I think Meco and I both kind of have always wanted to stick up for this game. At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's reached the point of being underrated, if anything, because especially after 15, which everybody said were like going to be an improvement upon this, I thought it did the complete opposite. I think it just made me appreciate this even more.
I have not played 15, but it seems like it was comparatively well received by people who do not like Final Fantasy.
Yeah, very much.
Okay. I don't like Final Fantasy. Not that I have anything against it, I just never played it, so...
Yes. I'm joined by Mr. A, who has never played a single Final Fantasy game as well.
Yes. That is... I'm unique here among
yeah. Contrast here, where the other two of us are massive fanboys.
Pretty much. Representation as well. It's back to Final Fantasy VII again, where they finally added a black character into the part.
Yeah, although a lot has been written about like stereotyping in that character.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And then I think we got a little bit.
Physics.
Good for them.
Are you watching my stream, by the way, on Discord? Might be a bit more real time.
Yeah.
Well, I will do that because I am just gonna play a game while watching, but I'll just watch on Discord. That's a better idea.
You should play Resident Evil while watching this in the background.
Yes, that's perfect.
Okay, alright, I'm caught up now. They're launching rockets.
Yeah.
It's a very big, spectacular fight scene that's going on for a long time that has no kind of interactivity of any kind.
My favorite. Honestly, I don't. The thing that bothers me most is when you're watching a cutscene and they surprise you with like button prompts.
Oh yeah.
So nothing wrong with a good old-fashioned cutscene, as long as it's not too long, I guess.
It isn't like Metal Gear long, but there are quite a lot of cutscenes in this compared to previous entries in the franchise.
Okay. They've summoned this big beast thing.
The director of 13 actually had a weird vision for the future of Final Fantasy, where he wanted it to be a bit more streamlined, and I suppose that's where the linear approach came from, because he wanted people to just see it more as a movie. I don't know, it was kind of weird, but he had a very weird vision for how he wanted the future of it to go, and a lot of people didn't like that. They wanted it to be more like classical Final Fantasy.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, to explain maybe a little more clearly, a major criticism that comes with this game is that the exploration mostly just comes down to walking down linear, like very completely straight hallways.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
I do remember that from what I've read about like reviews of Final Fantasy XIII. I remember the linear hallway thing being mentioned.
yeah, whereas like Final Fantasy VI, for example, you'd have a dungeon that had multiple paths and stuff. You go down one path to like find treasures first, and then another path to actually progress and all that. But I don't think it's all bad that they made that change. I think in a way it might have been a response to some of the problems with the genre of RPG, because I think when you look at games like this one on Final Fantasy XII, you can kind of see Square attempting to solve some of the like intrinsic problems that come with RPG gameplay. And one of those is just that if you're wandering around a dungeon and then getting into random battles, those two elements don't go together that well. Like they sort of just interrupt one another instead of enhancing one another in a way. So the way that this game fixes that just kind of by removing the whole exploration part altogether.
I've just noticed one problem is that it says press something to confirm. There's no button prompt there, but I already know what to press.
You're a pro, so you know what it's gonna say.
I actually haven't played this game in what, like 10 years now, so
okay.
I've just missed every attack there somehow, even though I've got to just press one button. This is a problem with the first few hours of this game. I don't know, probably like 10 hours, which is kind of awful to admit. But it's just everything's just this. It's just mashing the X button for a long time. Ironically, it says during that tutorial that, if you can manually choose your abilities if you see fit, but that doesn't really become a thing until a lot later on, because for the most part you can just auto attack because the game knows what you need to do. It's kind of stupid.
You
and
kind
then
of just mash auto attack every time it's your turn for the first several hours of this game.
Yeah. But then when it really opens up and you get all your party and it actually means you're having to switch out characters and stuff, that's when it gets really deep. And I actually thought the what I once considered an awful combat system then suddenly turned into what I can now consider probably one of the most fun.
And I agree with that. I think this has one of the better RPG battle systems that I've seen in a game. But it does take hours to get good, which is a serious problem, obviously.
Well, so I thought that the later Final Fantasies added like action RPG real-time combat, but it looks like this is still kind of turn-based or pseudo-turn-based.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like a hybrid.
Later on.
Okay.
Final Fantasy XV, I think, has the action RPG thing going, and then the Final Fantasy VII remake has the hybrid.
Right. The remake, I know. Maybe I was thinking of the one with where all those dudes go on a road trip in their fancy car.
Yeah, that's Final Fantasy XV.
Okay, that's 15. Okay, got it.
And then there's also the Kingdom Hearts series, which is another, like, it's a spin-off, basically. Of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, that one I know is like.
I think there's like sort of a degree of inspiration from Kingdom Hearts in Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat system.
Got it. Okay. All right.
I don't know why I healed, but I just thought just in case something came out. No way.
Yeah, better safe than sorry, right?
Hey, you got 5 stars, so you didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, I got a potion back anyway, so okay.
I will note for anyone watching the stream on Twitch is only like 2 seconds behind the real-time gameplay at this point. So.
Oh, that's good.
Whoa.
Low latency mode's working out for us, I guess.
Yeah, unlike in Fear, when it was like that whole stream was a disaster. I don't even want to talk about it.
It was.
Aren't you supposed to protect civilians, soldier? I mean, you are Sanctum, aren't you? What are you doing trying to stop the purge? Why don't you tell me that?
I was a soldier.
It's so reminiscent of 7 and
Yeah, it is. Probably deliberately.
I was actually thinking that from what little I know of 7, from watching like cutscenes, and I think I may have even watched a playthrough of it a while ago. But I get that same vibe as well.
I love the music though. I adore the soundtrack to this game.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty excellent soundtrack.
I think it's generally a highlight of this series, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd say so. Squaresoft games in general really tend to have very strong soundtracks. Because even like Chrono Trigger and Xenogears, both notably good soundtracks, I would say.
Sure we can get through here?
The texture pack that I've installed isn't that amazing, but when you compare it to the original port, it's a massive improvement because a lot of the textures are super blurry.
Sure.
Yeah, this one other thing as well is that the shop is just here. You don't go anywhere. Like on the old Final Fantasy games, you go to different areas and different villages to go to the shops. Whereas on here, it's just all secluded into this these little pods that you find in random locations.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like that as well because they were basically telling you that there is no exploration.
Right. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I do get that coming from something that's more like an old school or classic RPG style to this. I mean, similar to, you know, a good example of that is Fallout, moving from the old school CRPG to like 3D space, more streamlined type thing.
Yeah,
Like
or
it
even
smells
Deus
better.
Ex Human Revolution,
Yep,
combining
Deus Ex.
two level up systems into one
Yep.
annoyed a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a choice that developers have to make, and I think I never blame them for making the choice to streamline things, but I feel like it needs to be done well as opposed to, you know, going all the way into streamlining can really, if it fails to bring new people in and alienates too many fans, then you're kind of screwed. Right, so you're playing as is the main character named Lightning?
That's right. Yeah.
All right, so I
Which
remember
is,
people complaining about Lightning as a main character. Some people don't like her.
Yeah, I think it's mainly because a lot of people complain that she felt really cheap. Like as I said earlier, it feels like a big homage to Seven, and I mean she's called Lightning and he called Cloud, and it just feels like
yeah.
they're just kind of doing, and she pretty much acts very similar to him, where she's a miserable cunt in the start, like he was, and then later on she opens up a bit more, much like he does, and it kind of you know it feels a bit more like that.
Yeah, she did sometimes get described as Cloud with boobs, although
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm not sure that's entirely accurate.
And this was, I don't know if it was the first one, but I know this game had a sequel, so it had the confusing title of 13-2, right?
Yeah,
Well-
well, that was not the first time that had happened, because there was also a Final Fantasy X too.
Yeah.
Okay, I was not aware of that. Okay, so gotcha. Lightning Returns.
And fun fact is that the guy who directed 10-2 was different to the one who directed the first, directed 10, and the one who directed 10-2 actually directed this one, and you can definitely tell that he took a lot of influence with the combat system, because although it's not the same as this, there are a lot of elements that feel very
Sure.
similar.
Gotcha.
Like how the sort of like how the enemies, the characters sort of on the old Final Fantasy they move back to their standing position when they've done an attack, whereas on 10 they kind of 10-2 they kind of moved around, like what they do on here.
Yep.
So stuff like that, I just thought you can definitely tell that it's the same director. And then he went on to just do what he did with 10 and just 10-2, 13-2, Lightning Returns. It's like making sequels to, yeah.
There's 13, and there's 13-2, and then there's 13 Lightning Returns. So,
Oh, those are different. I thought 13-2 was Lightning Returns.
No.
Wow. All right.
yeah, I mean that's definitely a big problem for Square in general too. Those very nonsensical naming systems.
Oh yeah. If we get into Kingdom Hearts, I have no idea what game
I was
is
gonna
what.
say that Kingdom Hearts is really bad for that.
I had to I remember when what was it? Oh god, I don't even know the name of it, but one of them came out. I had to ask my friend who was a fan of them, like, how do you even pronounce this name of this game?
Yeah. Maybe you're thinking of 358
Yes,
over
that
2
one.
days.
Yeah.
I'm honestly not sure. I think it's 358 and a half days, to be honest, but I don't know.
Okay. I think he said it was over 2. So see, we have two different opinions here.
Well, he might know better because I didn't finish that one.
Okay.
So that's also annoying. You have to press right every time you go to save because for some reason it thinks you want to make a new save file. That's just a minor complaint, but it always wound me up on the other one.
Oh, interesting. I always make new save files just to stagger them in case something goes wrong. So
I do
it's
if like
good for
it's
players like me.
a certain area, but
I tend to split my files into like 2 or 3 files for the whole playthrough.
Wow. It depends on the game. I'll go up to 9 on like some RPGs just in case.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
on
RPGs
Fallout.
that I know are trying to screw me over.
Fallout 2, I would use the whole 10,
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah,
Fallout.
well, on normal RPGs, you do that in case you made a wrong decision. The only wrong decision you're going to make on here is you might go backwards instead of forwards. So, I mean,
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, it depends on it. Like I said, it depends on the
I
type.
think there's missable items and stuff in this game. Like, I think there's one trophy where you have to like find every single like little treasure chest in the game,
yeah.
and you can't really revisit any other areas. So if you miss any, and some of them are like hidden a little bit, you just can't get the trophy anymore. So it's probably kind of hard to get, to be honest. You probably have to follow a guide the whole game.
So what, as a fan of Final Fantasy, what connects the games for you? It seems like for me, the gameplay changes, the stories are all different. So aside from the name, what carries over between the games that somebody who played the old Final Fantasies would be interested in playing this, even though it's totally different from what they've played before?
I guess for me, they're always similar. I mean, the battle systems are always... Well, the battle systems weren't really that different up until... I mean, they had some different elements. Like, I know, obviously, people say that like 7 and 8 have got the same battle system to an extent, but then it's got like the...
Different
what do you call it now?
mechanics,
Yeah, the what is it? The
Curia
junction.
versus the junctions.
Yeah, and stuff like that. But
Yes.
there's always
Basically, they have a shared aesthetic and
Yeah.
some common elements between different games. But overall, I think it is very possible to sort of have a pick and mix, like some Final Fantasy that you do and do not like. That's pretty, quite common, like 7 or 8 and 10 are two quite polarizing ones. Some people think it's like one of the best games in the series, and some people think are among the worst.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
I think if I remember right, I think 7 and 9 are usually considered quite good ones, but I might be.
I really love 7 and 9, but it was kind of flew under the radar when it first came out. Partly because it came out for PlayStation 1 either when the PlayStation 2 was already out or very close to it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think a lot of games have that problem.
Yes, that's always a natural problem if you come out near the end of its console's lifespan.
Yeah.
And it also, I think, just didn't get advertised as much. But fans of the series, I think, generally tend to like it. I think what I would say is really just that, for one reason or another, Final Fantasy just had a really, really high average standard of quality.
Yeah.
For like of RPGs, when I go and play almost any other RPG series, I can just find that like noticeably not as good as Final Fantasy, with like few exceptions. Dragon Quest, for example, is one of its main competitors in Japan, and in my personal opinion, this is maybe a little controversial, but none of the Dragon Quest games even come close to being as good as the best Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, I agree.
I know
with
nothing
that
about Dragon Quest, so I wouldn't argue with you. Okay, gotcha.
I agree with the quality aspect of it. I mean, even Final Fantasy XV, as much as I didn't like it, you can tell it's very polished in what I mean. It doesn't feel like they've. It doesn't really. I think it feels incomplete, but it doesn't feel. You can tell there's a lot of attention to detail in certain aspects of it. It doesn't feel like it's just a cash grab or I don't know. It's all now Square treat the franchise, really. It's like they love it, but they just don't put as much effort in as what I hope.
Yeah.
Well, that's I guess the caveat when I say that this series has a very high average standard of quality. That can be argued to be with the exception of like 12 onwards.
All right, you leave this to me.
So you can kind of say that Final Fantasy had like a golden era around the later SNES to PlayStation 1, and then start of PlayStation 2, I guess, because even though I personally don't like it that much, Final Fantasy X is also like a landmark game to this genre.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, that's my impression of it, is like the old games up to around 9 and 10, like nobody really contests that they're good, regardless of if you think they're better or worse than other entries. It's only after that, when they start getting into the past 10, that people start really strongly disliking them, some of them, perhaps.
I think that's right. I think that's accurate for like generally how these games are perceived.
Mm-hmm. And that's also after, I think after 10, they branched out into other genres. They had a few MMOs and that kind of thing. So
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of spin-offs coming out after that point.
mm-hmm.
Because I mean, besides the like mainline Final Fantasy games, there are just a ton of different sub-series you can look at, like Tactics for starters, and then Chocobo stuff. There's several different Chocobo-related sub-series, and then there's Crystal Chronicles and all that stuff, Crystal Bearers, and like phone games and all that other crap that you can get into. Although that's probably just like not even necessary to think about.
Right.
I mean, Square obviously know where the moneymaker is when every time they get an opportunity to do anything to pay tribute to, if you call it that, 7, they jump on it.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, there were so many spin-offs, the movies made of it and stuff like that, so they know where people really...
Yes, although apparently it's more popular in America and less popular in Japan. And I think for some reason Japanese people really love Final Fantasy IV, which is why that one has also been kind of pimped out. Because like, out of all the games, I think the one that's been remade and re-released the most time is Final Fantasy IV.
It could be just an example of it was just more popular in general in Japan earlier on, so they... You know, when a group of people latches onto a certain game in a series, they stick with it. So, like, even if 7 is better than 4, they already latched onto 4 before Westerners were even aware of it, and so 4 remains popular because of that, regardless of 7's quality. That could be part of it.
Possibly. I mean, this is kind of besides the point, but if we are comparing the two, I do think 7 is much better. I think 4 is actually maybe a little bit of an underwhelming installment of the franchise. So I kind of think the first 6 games are just like really old, and so they don't really hit their stride and become interesting until like Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah. That's how I imagine them. Is like they are technically good, but I have no interest in really playing them.
Or maybe like
how old they are.
better played for their historical value than the actual game. Like I think there's reason to go back and play the very first Dragon Quest because it was one of the first console RPGs ever made, and just like it's worthwhile to sort of understand what games are like back then, I guess, but the actual experience of playing it is kind of excruciating.
I'm glad we're talking about this because I believe this was the lost conversation that we had during one of the Omori streams.
Yeah, we did talk about Dragon Quest before.
We did briefly, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not important when we need to discuss Resident Evil.
That's right, Resident Evil 8 in particular.
Yes.
It's moved on from 6 now, it's 8.
I have not watched Donkey's latest video yet.
Okay. He doesn't review it or anything, he just kind of has clips of him playing it.
Sure, that's typical. I put no weight into Donkey's reviews aside from entertainment. So I don't think, I don't know. I can't tell if he's serious or not. I do think, you're right. He does have serious videos sometimes. So I guess that's not entirely fair.
I think there are games where he expresses his arguments fairly well. Actually, a decent example is actually his review of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think, where he does a pretty good job discussing both the strengths and weaknesses of the original Final Fantasy VII, even.
Gotcha.
But for some reason, for me, it's when he starts reviewing movies that I really find his opinions almost completely ridiculous on like almost every movie.
Well, I still remember. I remember his Death Stranding video, which I know Death Stranding was kind of a surprisingly polarizing game, but most reviewers who spoke negatively of it, I found difficult to take seriously because not that I invalidate their opinion or want to invalidate their opinion, but I experienced almost none of the issues that they tended to have, playing the game. So I guess it really is just very preference based. Like, I guess they didn't like it for those reasons, but I don't sympathize with that at all. Just based on my playthroughs, it's just nature of the game, I guess. But like Donkey is an example of that. It's like I really just don't agree with almost any of his complaints. So. But I believe that he feels that way. That's fair. It is what it is.
I think when you're talking about Death Stranding specifically, that probably is more true.
Yeah.
Because it's just it's an unusual game for sure.
Right.
So some people are just naturally gonna have like a adverse reaction to that.
Right. Well, I watched Critical review it as well, and like I watched, he had clips of him playing it and just genuinely not enjoying it. So like, I believe his review when he says he really just didn't like it, but I still just personally don't agree with most of what he didn't like. But I think it's some situation where it's like, okay, I get that.
Well,
get it.
I guess
It's not, it's different than someone playing up like or making up negative stuff about the game. It's like, wow, okay, these guys just genuinely didn't like something that I enjoyed very much, which is totally fair, but just kind of weird for me, I guess.
Yeah, because I think for me it's sort of easy enough to see why like the core gameplay of Death Stranding would put somebody off, right? Like it would not be very much fun for somebody. But I agree. The Dunkey, for example, complained that like the character start to stumble and stuff because if you were too overloaded, which I thought was a useful part of the game design because it adds a strategic consideration to how much you bring with you.
Right, yeah. You're supposed to not get overloaded if you're having trouble with that. Or Critical had the same issue where it's like if you try to cross a river, you might run out of stamina and start flailing around helplessly. Well, the solution is you don't cross rivers like that, like that's intended gameplay mechanics.
That always made me laugh because one of the things you're supposed to do in that situation is use your environment around you, like put ladders down and stuff like that. It's like they're ignoring the actual game mechanics that are put there to help you with those situations and saying, oh, you can't cross rivers. It's like, well, yeah, that's what the game does on purpose because you're supposed to do other stuff.
That's an obstacle, exactly. It's like talking about,
Like I saw Dunkey was struggling with a cargo thing and running down a hill. That the game tells you not to do that. It tells you not to go down steep hills when you got loads of heavy cargo because you're going to drop it. And they did it, and then went, oh, the mechanics of this are awful. It's like, what you want about?
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say it's equally ridiculous trying to play like Doom with like a melee only strategy where it's like and complain that you can't do that. It's like that's just an intended gameplay mechanic that you can't do that. That's not a bad thing about the game. I mean, it's fair if you don't like that, I guess, but you can't really fault the game for that. I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, well, actually, Deus Ex can be another example of this too, where your character feels kind of weak, but that's intentional to try to make the stealth more necessary. So,
sure, yeah.
I think to some extent that bugged me when I played the game too, but I did at least understand that it was a deliberate part of the design.
Yeah. Yeah, like I had a friend complain about the gameplay in Last of Us, where he didn't like the direction it took, and I get it, like you don't have to like it, but for me it was intended as a stealth game, and I guess part of it wasn't really advertised as such, but that was what it was at its core, and I didn't mind that, but I guess I can understand people thinking it would be more action focused.
Yeah, like an Uncharted.
Yeah, exactly, but it's almost purely a pretty decent stealth game, and I played it, I got that, and I enjoyed it. And my friend was like, yeah, I wish, he's not a fan of stealth games, so I get it. It's not the game's fault, in my opinion.
Well, I think there are intrinsic problems with stealth genre that probably could be addressed better by developers. So,
sure.
For example, the lack of clarity as to how you can be seen and where and when.
Yeah.
I think that's something that could be designed around.
Well, I feel like that's been solved, but in a kind of lazy way, where every single stealth game now uses the same overhead vision meter.
Yeah.
Like that white meter that fills up. Like every single stealth game has the same exact meter now that shows you when you're visible, when you're being seen and when you're not. Hitman has it. Splinter Cell has it. I think Assassin's Creed has the same thing now. I don't know. All of it. I personally like stealth games, and they're a little bit more obscure. My favorite stealth game is probably Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. It's a little bit more old school.
Yeah, I love that one.
It has meters that show you how visible you are, but not necessarily if you're being actively spotted or not. But you can take steps to move more quietly and in darker environments, and that you are more or less visible and act based on that, as opposed to the way that stealth games work now is they don't tell you if you're less visible, they just tell you if you are actively being spotted or not. And so if you're being spotted, you can kind of back away. It's a little bit more reactive than proactive, I think, is the system being used now.
The Thief games also have a visibility meter,
Yes,
right? It tells you if you're in shadow.
I think Thief uses, I was going to say the same engine as Splinter Cell. I don't know if that's accurate or not, actually, now that I'm speaking. But either way, yes, Thief is a good example. Anyway, Meco, you can interrupt us any time to tell us about Final Fantasy. I don't
there was very much to say apart from this was one annoyance that people didn't like about the game is now I'm switching to the character Snow, who's the well, party member that joins later on, but the game does this a lot where it switches between these two, and a lot of people didn't like that because just you play as each character for about 5 minutes at one point, and then it switches to this character, and people just rather are just stuck to playing Lightning. I mean, I don't know if this was their attempt to make it feel less linear, but it didn't work.
Right.
I've never really had an issue with it though, personally. But yeah, I mean, later on we'll have like 3 or 4 different party leaders that we're following around, kind of going back and forth between them.
Well, they were more like that sequence just then. I walked forward, went into a battle, went to a cutscene, walked forward, went into a battle, went to another cutscene, and here we are. And it's like, that isn't really that much fun. And not to mention that the battle system at the moment is just pressing X over and over again. I'm trying to mix it up by going to abilities and doing it manually, but it's not really adding any depth to it.
So you're throwing the grenades. I guess that's all there is. Like, you can check out where the enemies are, and then if they're grouped together, the grenades become more efficient than just punching.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I was going to mention, no offense to the game, I know it's early, but it looks like I would despise the combat in this game.
Yeah, this is the problem, is that when you're trying to tell people who've only played the first hour of it that the combat gets really good later on, they're like, yeah, of course it does, because it is so awful in the beginning.
Right, I believe you, but yeah, it just looks like smash and attack over and over.
It does take way too long to unlock the options that make it good.
Sure. I think you brought that up in the Discord, right?
Yeah.
I think you should,
This is why it's so infuriating, because I really want more people to appreciate this, but but at the same time, I have to admit that it does a horrible job of introducing itself.
Yeah, it has like a super needlessly long tutorial, basically like the first 10 hours or so of the game or something, because it's basically the tutorial.
Yep.
I think it was Hybrid who was saying he started playing it and he's got 5 hours into it and he's already getting bored, and I'm like, that's awful, because I understand him and I think he has a point, but it's like I really want him to continue because I think he'd really appreciate it later on.
Yeah, well, I mean, Yahtzee as well, in his review, he only did the first 5 hours of the game and then stopped. And so I think he did say the combat system was basically just pressing auto attack, which at that point in the game it probably still was.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's a totally valid criticism to have, is even if the game does become super good later on, taking that long to unmake it is a really big detriment.
Well, I think I got in. Sorry, go ahead.
You could just play a game that's good all the way through. There are enough of those out there.
Yeah. That's the argument I got into with Wally, I think, about Fallout 76, where I think Giant Bomb refused to review it because nobody was willing to play it past a certain point because they hated it so much, and Wally was calling them lazy journalists, and I was like, well, if the game is so bad that they won't play it, I think that is a pretty good review.
Yeah. Well, I guess they could have had one of them write a review on whatever maximum amount they could tolerate, but I can understand why they would choose not to do that too.
Right.
Uninformed if they didn't play nothing.
Yeah, so I get both sides, but I believe you, Meco.
I don't believe it's. I mean, that view of it being lazy or you can't have an opinion on it if you haven't completed it, I think that's a lot of shite, because there's plenty of games where I've played a lot of the game, but I've never completed Skyrim, but I've played a lot of it. I've played dozens of hours of Skyrim, but I've never had to complete the main game. But then, therefore, should I not be able to form an opinion just because I haven't completed the main story? Do you know what I mean? I think it really depends on the game, and
it does.
You don't have to have completed it to get a valid opinion on how it plays. I think that's
it really does depend on the game. You're right. Yeah.
I think part of it too is that when somebody disagrees with people, it's natural for people to seek a reason to just invalidate their opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of respecting it.
The way
Except
to beat
Hey,
the
I
argument.
don't like this game you like, but I didn't finish it, and they're like, oh, well, you didn't finish it. Your opinion's
I think there's a
invalid.
difference between not playing it and just watching other people play it and say, oh, it control, you know, like having an opinion on like how it controls. I think that's a bit odd because it's like, well, you don't know because you haven't played it. But I think, but then again, at the same time, I think people who watch somebody else playing a game can also have an opinion on the story because they've witnessed it. I mean, you don't have to play the game to witness the story. So
Yeah.
if you watch somebody else complete it and thought the story were a load of shit, you can't, no one can argue with you and say, well, you haven't played it, you've watched someone else play it. Well, that makes no difference.
And even if the argument is like, oh well, the story gets really good at the end and redeems itself, it's like, well, the story should be good throughout. Like, yeah, it of course will have its strong and weak points, but you can't say that like, you know, your opinion on the story is invalid because you didn't finish it all the way, as though the end will make up for a especially weak story in the middle. You know?
Yeah.
I will note you got 4 stars in the last battle, so I think you might want to start over.
Yeah, I need to have a perfect. Yeah, I need to have a perfect run. It makes me laugh how I get 4 stars on and I can't do anything to really improve.
Yeah,
that,
all you
from...
did was mash attack like always, but that was 4 stars instead of 5 for some reason.
Like, no, you didn't mash X fast enough. That's not good.
Exactly.
I guess
Oh,
with
shit.
some stories, you can say there are like aspects near the end that recontextualize the story so much that if you haven't seen that, you won't fully understand it. Like I think actually Omori is arguably sort of an
That's
example
a
of
good
that.
good example, actually. Yeah, or the movie The Usual Suspects.
And we survived.
For those who've seen it, have you guys seen that movie?
Yeah,
no, but I know the twist.
Oh well, that ruins it. Okay.
That's what I've been told. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no point really watching it. Honestly, like that movie isn't. It's good, but if you know the twist, it's not good enough to even go watch. Honestly. But anyway, yeah, that's a great point. And Omori is definitely an example of that, where recontextualization is a good way to put it.
Yeah, because I think if you had played that game even quite close to the end, and where then stops, your understanding of the story would be critically incomplete, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Fair enough.
Here you go.
it's a tense boss battle. I mean, oh shit, I'm almost gonna die.
Whoa.
Oh no, I've got an auto healer. It's fine.
Yeah, you're fine. You're not even. Yeah, you're still like almost.
Oh,
maxed
4
out.
stars again. Alright, I'll restart from beginning again. I'll
just
watch all the
getting-
cutscenes.
yeah, I'm just kind of embarrassed at this point. Whoa. Something. I don't mean any offense. I don't know how to put this without being
it's
rude,
fine.
but the animations in this game and a lot of I feel Japanese games is like that's just not how people move. It
Oh,
just
yeah.
looks so weird. I just don't understand.
Well, it made me laugh earlier. There was a scene and one of the characters, it's like a young girl, holds a gun up to Snow and pretends to shoot, and he's just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
shoot!" It's like, what? That's not normal. That's not normal
It's
human.
not.
reaction.
Yeah, people don't act that way. Excuse
You'd
me.
be like, "Put that
Some of
fucking
it
gun down.
is
Be
just
careful."
Yeah,
like
exactly.
exaggeration.
Yeah. At least pull a Metal Gear or whatever. The first Metal Gear Solid. Safety's still on. You know. It's like, oh, that's cute.
A fragile mum can hold a rocket launcher and shoot a spaceship. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, Japan, that's how it works.
Yeah.
But then she dies to that.
Whoa. She's fine. Or not. That's the thing, is like it's like when somebody gets blown up like that or an explosion near them, like whether or not they die is purely a plot element. Like she could be okay if the plot needed her to be okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know if I would see that as like a particularly big problem with the story, though.
No, I'm just nitpicking. This is the Nitpick podcast. I don't know if you were aware.
This is actually a very important scene, though, that we're seeing right now
Okay.
for the
Yeah.
story.
I am watching as much as I'm shitting on it.
Yeah.
Oh, she's okay. She's alive.
Yeah, but she falls.
Right. Oh no.
So that kid there is her son.
Right.
It's falling.
Them gloves must not have a lot of grip. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I think it does
Pretty
actually
going.
take quite a lot of upper body strength to pull somebody off a ledge.
Oh, especially if they're limp. If you ever picked up like a limp person,
Yeah, because
they're just like it's like a dog versus a cat, where you pick up a dog and they're kind of like stiff and easy to pick up, but a cat is just like loose. Like they could weigh the same or less, but it's harder to lift the cat.
Yeah, okay.
Except we'll take your word for that.
It's just like, yeah, sure.
He's not going to test that theory. Pick up somebody's dog in park and just be like, yeah, he's right. Okay, so that was the first sort of big sequence, and that took me nearly an hour. That's odd. Well, 40 minutes.
40 minutes. Yeah.
But most of that were followed with cutscenes. So.
You can't really control how long it takes because you were just going in a straight line.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure there's a speedrun glitch where I could have just like warped under the floor and skipped all bosses.
That actually does make me curious what a Final Fantasy XIII speedrun looks like.
Yeah, I always enjoy seeing that.
I think I saw one and they just dodge all the battles and only fight certain ones that are important.
Especially at this point, because you don't even get EXP really for doing the fights.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why carry the danger all the way to Pulse?
Let's see.
Why not just stamp it out here?
Just looking this up. First speedrun that comes up on YouTube is 5 hours long.
That's all the Purge ever was.
For an RPG game, that's pretty short.
Yeah, that's not bad. I think I've seen Dragon Quest speedruns that are a little longer.
How does the government get away with pulling crap like that? And you knew this was gonna happen?
The Purge was PSICOM. Private Sanctum troops, not the Guardian Corps.
PSICOM, Guardian Corps. Soldiers are soldiers, aren't they? Pulse Foul C and their Lassie.
It gives me how shiny his hair is on this because like I don't know what they've done with it. That is like a weird texture on his hair.
This has similar, from my knowledge of Final Fantasy VII, this has similar kind of anti-military vibe.
Yeah, pretty much.
Order say shoot, you pull the trigger.
It always made me laugh with Final Fantasy games because everybody used to just take the mick out of the fact that they seem to be focused on these weird hairstyles, and then it turned out like with 15 is that the game were having massive issues because of the amount of detail they put into Noctis' hair, and it were like cracking the game.
That's funny. I didn't know that.
Like it had like each individual strand moving, and it was like that's the bit too much. Just
Tomb Raider also had that, right?
Yeah, Tomb Raider. Yep, I remember that.
On and off, and they were like really intensive on your processor.
Yes, like that was the difference between me being able to run the game and not back when it came out. Now it's not a problem, but yeah. I think Witcher 2, maybe?
Yeah.
Did 3 have that? I think
yeah,
Witcher
3
2
had that, but it weren't.
Okay, yeah.
It weren't as intense. It was just
right.
It was only his ponytail that really moved.
Yeah, and Ciri's hair, I think, but yeah. Alright, so you're fighting this boss, the Myrmidon.
Yeah, it's just
so maybe we should try to talk about what's happened in the story so far. I think to begin with, a lot of the time there's sort of an in medias res approach in Final Fantasy, and especially this game. But what's going to happen over the course of the next few hours is we have this part, but then there's going to be flashbacks that detail like the last 7 days or something before the start of the game. So there's a lot of like concepts that are being thrown around really right now. Like you might have heard the terms Lassie and Falsy mentioned.
Yep.
Both of which we don't really know what they mean yet. And there's this whole purge going on that the military is doing. So again, I don't think that's been explored what exactly the details of that are either. Except that Sazh, who's the black guy with lightning, is very upset about it.
Yeah. That's risky. Is like you want to intrigue the players enough to make them interested in the context, but like for me, just watching this, I would have zoned out already and been like,
Yep.
okay, nothing's being explained. I don't care.
And that's a pretty common problem or criticism of this game, is that it's quite difficult to follow the story between all the weird terms and just the approach that it takes in general too.
Yeah. It
So yeah,
looks
this thing
really pretty though.
Yeah, this thing that they're seeing here is the pulse fallacy,
Which is where people are being taken to. Relocation to the pulse is something I've seen, right? So.
Okay, and so here we have Hope, whose mom just died.
Right.
He's 14 years old as well.
He's dealing with it well.
God, Vanille looks a lot creepier than I remember.
Here.
This is Vanille. She's kind of mysterious.
Here, take this.
Take
She's
this huge
also,
gun.
Yeah. You're 14, right?
Too much,
You can shoot.
isn't it?
You're 14 and your mom just died.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very safe to leave you with a gun.
Hey, wait!
Yeah, she's also very bubbly and happy
Yeah.
go lucky.
She's just like, she's literally just like, yeah, just don't worry about it. Let's go.
Made you happy and smile, didn't you?
Depression
Yeah,
means
she's also the
nothing. Let's
one-
go.
Really,
She's also the one narrating the story as well.
Okay,
I
got
was
it.
always afraid.
Yep.
Just to add that extra bit of confusion. I will say though, the cutscenes have aged pretty well. I mean, they're clearly a little bit outdated, but considering this came out in what 2009 or something.
Oh yeah, that actually, I was surprised to hear that because they do look good. Some of the, like when she hugged him, the way the models interacted looked a little
Yeah.
stiff, but otherwise it looks really pretty.
I think there has been a lot of criticism of like the art direction itself, though, which may be valid, where it just like uses way too many over-the-top garish colors and stuff instead of maybe a more subdued but consistent visual theme.
Yeah, I'd argue for both. There's a mix of garish colors and like the whole background is so just green that I can't really make out any specific details. It's just like a sea of green.
Yeah.
It looks like it's flashy, but I also can't really like. I don't have any context for what the environment is. You know.
Yeah.
If you've ever
I think
seen
there
the
is some legitimate criticism of the
Yeah.
art direction along those kinds of lines, and just everybody's fashion sense and hairstyle being so.
So, yeah, typical.
that's
really. Of
pretty
Final
typical
Fantasy.
Final Fantasy, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
I wouldn't complain about that. That's
I
just
think
a
it's
staple.
really once Tetsuya Nomura gets in charge of character design that it starts to get really crazy.
Okay.
Like, he has a fetish for belts, it seems, where a lot of his character designs will have insane numbers of belts. The biggest example is Lulu from Final Fantasy X, who basically wears a dress that's made out of hundreds of belts put
Okay.
together.
I'm gonna look her up actually.
Hey, get a grip, man! What's
Oh,
wrong
yep,
with you?
yep. Literally what you described. I wasn't even expecting this level of accuracy to what you said. It's literally a dress made of a bunch of belts. Okay. All right. That looks very uncomfortable.
Yes, probably is.
Toss me that. Catch.
I wonder if the directors have ever said to him, "Can you just like reduce the amount of belts?" And he's like, "You either have me or you have nobody."
Yeah,
So
you're fired.
I think it's a lot less pronounced, but another example is Zidane from Final Fantasy IX, who's wearing like 3 or 4, maybe 5 belts around his waist.
probably got hit a lot as a kid with a belt, so he's got some kind of...
It's a way of repressing trauma.
Yeah, he's like rebelling against. He's got
Oh, use that weapon against him.
He's got at least 3 belts, from what I can tell. Yep.
Now you're talking.
I prefer. I don't even like wearing 1 belt if I don't have to. Yeah.
Oh, good day.
Yeah, his whole fashion sense is also very, what would you say?
Oh, Nomura himself.
Everyone's all right.
I was just talking about Zidane, but yeah.
Oh,
Nomura,
alright.
probably,
I'm gonna say Nomura has had quite a few crazy hairstyles.
I feel
Yeah.
like fashion is something that's been criticized in quite a few Japanese-made games, and the justification for the choices is often quite weak. Like Kojima with Quiet, I think is a great example. Or what is it? The Kaine from Nier.
Yeah.
Like I like it makes sense. I do think if the director genuinely had that in mind, where like Kaine is of course spoilers I guess, but I haven't played the game, but from my understanding is a hermaphrodite that wants to express her or his, I don't know.
You're talking about the original Nier, right?
Yeah, Nier, not Automata.
Yeah,
Nier,
yeah.
I don't know if he or she
Doesn't
identifies
matter.
as male or female, but
I haven't played it either.
yeah, like he or she, I guess she wants to identify as more female, and so wears incredibly skimpy clothing to like accentuate her female sexuality. Where it's like, okay, that makes sense, but also I think you just wanted to make a really sexy female-looking character and have her wear nothing.
Yeah, I think it's probably actually to Nomura's credit that he doesn't, as far as I know anyways, try to come up with story justifications for the weird costumes his characters have. They just kind of dress that way.
I respect that. That's how JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is, and I respect that show's lack of explanation for how weird the characters look. It's like,
that
yeah,
show
it's fine.
has a very definite aesthetic that it's going for, yeah.
Yeah, and it's an aesthetic that is definitely weird, but also just totally unexplained, and I kind of respect that. That's one reason I enjoy this show. I'm not really an anime fan in general, but I like JoJo because it embraces just how dumb and weird it is, and it's kind of just fun that way.
I think that is exactly why it's good. Yeah, I think it becomes a bad character design when it's so overcomplicated that it doesn't actually express anything about the personality of the character.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If you look at Snow here, he does have a weird design, but I do think at least some parts of his character are expressed in the design. He's a tough, rambunctious type of guy, and the bandana and the rolled up sleeves and stuff kind of fit with that.
Yeah. And it looks a little over the top, but I think the over the topness also indicates how expressive he wants to be, which is also kind of a part of the character. So I think it totally fits. I mean, not that I know anything about him, but I can understand. If I'm making the right assumptions about him, it seems to fit, I guess.
That's a sad sound.
It doesn't bother me. He doesn't stand out as being crazy over the top compared to everyone else. So.
Yeah, I think it might be a bit almost cherry picking because his design probably is one of the less ridiculous ones.
Even compared to this guy next to him, I was gonna say he looks more subdued. So. Yeah, this is an example of what I was saying. It's just like a bunch of green lights. Like I don't really know where these people are or what they're looking at.
Something on your mind?
I guess it's basically just supposed to be a big old cyberpunk-esque city.
Yeah, I get it. I'm not saying it looks bad. It's just hard to get a grasp on.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's also deliberate to a certain extent because the city's so big that it's almost overwhelming to the people in it too.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I would say for example, I think Blade Runner tries to communicate the same type of visual and does it better without being confusing.
Yeah, I think I would agree.
Comparing movies to games now, but hey, that's what we do. We're a bunch of pretentious assholes.
Yeah. To go back to the character design thing, I think maybe one example you could look at where it doesn't work so well is actually Lightning, because she has that crazy over-the-top hair. It's 3 different hairstyles together, but she herself is a level-headed, cold, closed-off character. So there's a contradiction there.
That's something if you really think about does it fit this character's personality to spend that much time on their hair every morning?
Yeah,
which I guess they don't. It's just naturally that way in this series, but
I think so. Yeah, they never really get into Lightning's hair routine or anything.
But I can't imagine her having a routine for that.
She was feeling rebellious one day and wanted to dye it pink. That's all.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a little bit of sense.
Didn't you have something to tell him?
So I guess like
Actually,
Vanille as well, her like minimal clothing in a way that kind of matches how she's like a free-spirited, fun-loving character.
I'll go with you.
Yeah,
That's kind of expressed in the design as well. So
yeah, I get
maybe
that.
maybe not too many criticisms of her either, except that it's just a bit over the top.
You have no idea
Right.
what it was like.
isn't because Lightning's real name is like Claire Farron or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
And isn't she actually supposed to be blonde naturally or something? I'm sure that
I don't
there's an
know
old
about
picture.
that.
You know?
I'm not saying. Yeah, I haven't
I'll
heard
look
about
it up.
that, but it could be.
Let's keep it that way.
Yep, Claire Farron. Let's I actually just I remembered if you ever go into like the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure wiki and look up a character, it will have a detailed description, like incredibly detailed, of every outfit they've ever worn. Which plays again into the the importance of fashion, I guess, in JoJo. So that's what I'm looking for here, though, is her original hair color.
No,
which
it's
I'm
my
not
mistake.
finding.
It was her original design that she had a blonde hair, but I think Nomura realized it was a little bit too close to Cloud, so I think he made it pink.
Yep, nope, you're exactly right. That's what I'm looking at right here. Art director Isamu Kamiko Kurio consistently draws Lightning and Serah with blonde hair, despite their more official appearances. So it looks like it's just that art director that wants them to be blonde, but they are actually not in the game ever.
Nomura's like, no.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's pink. Yeah.
I was gonna
And
say
now
though, I wouldn't
plans
be too surprised if they had like written details about her dyeing her hair stuff, because back in the day with Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, there was an intention to make that main character of that film, Aki Ross, into this like virtual actor thing, where she would appear in multiple films and have like a fictional personal life outside of it, but that just flopped because the movie bombed.
Yes.
And I think there was somewhat of an effort to do something similar with Lightning, actually, and that was part of the reason why 13 was made into a big franchise, because they wanted to like turn the character into this separate phenomenon outside of just the context of the game, I guess.
Right.
But I think there might have been like a magazine or something with her on the cover, like a FFVIII magazine or something along those lines. At one point.
Huh. The Spirits Within was my only exposure to Final Fantasy for like a long time. I watched the movie. I think I saw it in theaters.
Well, that explains why you did
I've
not
no
get
idea
into the
what's
game,
going on.
because it would not be a good introduction to them at all.
Right. Yes, I understand that now. I mean, I know objectively it's a bad movie, but when I was a kid and saw it, I think I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I actually had
It
the
didn't stand out
same.
too much, but
I think the problem with
the
that
same basic experience.
Spirits of is that it shouldn't have been called Final Fantasy. It was a fine enough standalone CGI film. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was what it was. But calling it Final Fantasy was really bizarre because it's got no relation at all. There's nothing. They didn't even put anything like chocobos in it or anything just to try
that's
and
what
make it.
confused me. Is like what is like I watched it and I was like, oh, what's this Final Fantasy thing? And I looked it up and I was like, what the fuck is going on? It doesn't have anything to do with this movie.
I remember that was one of the things that disappointed me about it when I watched it as a kid. Was I was coming into it from having played like the PlayStation and early Final Fantasy games, so I was expecting like summons and stuff like that from the games, and then there was none of that stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
I honestly don't understand what they were thinking making them.
Yeah, it was strange.
My only assumption is that they were possibly trying to also turn Final Fantasy into a movie series as well, and that didn't really go as planned. But that's the only thing I can really think. Like, they want to make like a separate universe for it or something.
That makes sense. That would be probably their ideal. My like slightly more cynical view is that they had a movie that they felt wouldn't sell, so they slapped the Final Fantasy title onto it and was like,
I don't know. Like, there really were big intentions for the character of Aki Ross. They thought she was going to be this whole big thing.
Wow. I do not remember her being particularly memorable. I just thought it's just a cool action
maybe
movie.
this is what I was thinking of. There was Aki Ross was on the cover of Maxim magazine at one point.
Okay.
Oops. Well then.
Oh, another fun fact is well, it's not really a fact, but apparently if you try and mod this to be over 60 frames, the
What did you expect?
animations are all glitchy and the mouths move at like 900 miles an hour. And
Oh, it's funny. Like the physics are tied to the frame rate.
yeah, it's one of those games.
Oh man.
Because I wanted to unlock my frames, and then I read loads of people saying I would not do it because the animations look really
What do you
janky.
mean finished?
That was the thing in Dark Souls where weapon degradation, our favorite topic, was tied to frame rate. So if you ran at like higher frames, your weapons would degrade faster.
That's really fucking weird.
It was like I think it was Dark Souls 2. It's like what the fuck were they thinking?
What were we thinking?
I mean,
Whoa,
it
weird.
makes sense on the PlayStation because it's like locked frame rate, but on the PC port, it was like what?
Yeah.
That were weird. You said,
Or-
what were they thinking? And then Hope just literally went, what were we
Oh,
thinking?
really? I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. It did happen.
I believe you.
Yes, actually, we were talking about in Dark Souls how the weapon degradation doesn't really serve a purpose, but then I realized that I figured out what the point of it was. It's basically just in the game to facilitate, to put a limitation on those weapons that you can press R2 and do like a big magic attack, because those use up tons of durability.
Yes. Yeah.
So other
That's
than
true.
that, it's pretty much pointless, and that's the one purpose it serves in the whole game.
Fair enough. Yep, makes sense. Yeah, that was also an issue. I think in Resident Evil 7, I think there is a game where melee attacks, the faster your frame rate, the more damage you do because it like counts frame rate ticks
No,
for how long.
I know what you're thinking of. It's Resident Evil 2 remake. There's people do it in a speed run, and if you change the frames or something, it hits sooner, but a lot sooner. So people use it on speed runs all the time because you can just like get so much damage in because of that.
Yeah, I knew it was an RE game, but yeah, so like it's kind of shitty because literally like the better computer you have, the better you will do in speedruns because it's the melee is tied to frame rate, which is super weird.
That is very unfortunate, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, I was looking at my screen while I did that last battle. I didn't even realize I completed it just then.
It was a very quick battle.
Yes, and now we are playing as Vanille, and she's kind of babysitting Hope at the moment.
She runs
So,
obnoxiously.
just for an example, that earlier on is another thing that really annoys me about this game is that it made me play as Hope just to walk forward and watch a screen. Cutscene, and now I'm playing as Vanille. So there was no point. They might as well just skip that. It'd have been a lot easier just to have one long cutscene of Hope walking up to the vehicle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you sure this is the right way?
Also, you may notice that the compass on the top right is a little bit stretched because this game isn't made for these resolutions. But there's not really much you can do about that.
Yeah, I won't blame you.
Yes. So now Hope is probably the least popular character in this game, or maybe more accurately, the most disliked. And that's because he's basically just that tropey character that's like starts out as a pussy and then gets stronger as the game goes on.
Okay.
It's more because of
Right.
how long this game takes to get into the story as well. So Hope doesn't open up until a lot later on. So it's like you're stuck with just a whiny character for ages.
Yeah, well, that's what's happening right now is Vanille's exploring and stuff, and every now and then Hope will just say something whiny in the background.
Gotcha. It's like John Connor in Terminator 2.
Oh yeah.
Like a tropey kid character.
Well, it's just kind of a common thing in Japanese media, especially, is to start out with the weak kid and then he's growing with it. He's like growing and strong. It's like the main character in Evangelion, for example, kind of has that same starting point, but the series sort of deconstructs that whole character archetype.
Gotcha. Yes, Evangelion is on my list, my to-watch list.
I enjoy that one.
I know, that's why it's on my list, because you recommended it, so... I'm not a big, I've said this before, I'm not a big anime fan. I've only really enjoyed JoJo, but also mostly because I watch it with friends and we can like talk about it and like make fun of it, you know. And then I like Death Note when I watched it, but there are also parts of Death Note where it's like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of anime has some like or a lot of kind of childish elements to it that I don't particularly enjoy.
Okay.
I had that problem with Full Metal Alchemist, where I liked a lot of parts of it, but it was also like, I don't know, hard to get through in some parts. So,
yeah, I think I'm with you. I think you probably will find that to be true for Evangelion as well, to be honest.
Okay. As long as it's in, like, Death Note had that issue, but in general, I really enjoyed it, so it wasn't, I wouldn't say it overpowered my like of it, but something that I find
Death
a bit
Note also kind of
tedious.
has the issue that for a lot of people, at least, it just sort of gets worse around the halfway point,
Yeah,
and then it
that's
doesn't really
true.
get better.
I have one friend that enjoyed the series throughout, and that's the only person I've met that that's the case for. So.
Okay, I was hoping I could speed up the camera controls because it's a little bit too slow, but apparently not.
That's okay. That's alright.
I think the button prompts are completely missing, so I might need to reinstall the thing, but I don't really need them right now. They were I tested them out earlier and they were working, but they are not. They are missing completely now. So.
Oh, okay.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me unless it bothers you.
Yeah, same. So Vanille has a very unusual weapon. It's some kind of rod that shoots out strings at people.
Yeah, good. That's what I was just saying. Is I don't really understand what weapon she is using or what it does.
Yeah, I'm not really sure either. She's actually a magic user for the most part in the game, so she doesn't really use it. She casts spells, but at this point we don't have any spells or abilities at all. That one we unlock later, so this is when we get to see her weapon. So I guess enjoy it while it's here.
Yeah, because later on she's just nothing but a healing bitch later.
Okay, yeah. The heal bot. Meco, you should play Persona for us, since you like it so much.
Persona what? Oh, for us, I thought you said
No, I said
so
for us. Yeah, any one of them, whatever you want.
Well, if you want PC, it'd have to be... Well, I could actually use an emulator, I suppose, to play 3.
Yeah.
I could use an emulator to play 5, to be honest with you, but...
I mean, 4 and 5 have native ports, right?
4 does, I don't think 5 does.
But 5 is not on PC?
I don't think so.
No, it's not. The Strikers is, but not the original, which is bizarre, since Strikers is a sequel.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm... Okay, so yeah, just 4 is on PC. Oh, okay. Good to know. Yeah, I have 3 and 4 on PS3. I haven't... I need to finish 3 and then start 4.
Yeah, I've finished 4 when I was like 16, so I don't remember it super well. And then 3 I would also be interested in seeing, but I will probably play it one day when I have 100 hours to play a Persona game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 3 was... I enjoyed it. I just... not enough to finish it, I guess. I got burnt out. Even now, like, I was gushing about Underrail the other day, and I'm kind of burnt out on it. I'm gonna take a break before finishing it. It's just, like, taking so... Like, I loved it, but I'm getting to the end, and the end is a little bit of a slog, so I'm just gonna stop. I just don't care.
Well, Persona 5 actually was a very rare type of game for me, because even though it was 100 hours long, I actually, like, loved it the whole way through, and I would just, like, come home from work every day and sit there playing Persona 5 for as long as I could.
Sure. I mean, I've had games like that. Most recently, probably Death Stranding, honestly. Just, like, come home and just, like, play it, and like, never get sick of it until I got sick of it at the very end, but I was done, so it's good. That's perfect. You want to get sick of it as it ends. That's the perfect length of game.
Actually, Omori was like that too for me. We're basically from the point I started it until I finished it, I was just playing it the whole time. I was supposed to start God of War 3 for my project, and I didn't even start it until I finished Omori. But that game's only like 20 hours long, as opposed to 100 like Persona 5. So more impressive for Persona to keep playing.
God of War 3, while being the best of the original trilogy, is still God of War 3. So.
I didn't like it very much, but I guess that whole set of games is just really enough for me.
Same. I mean, I played it. I didn't hate playing it, but I can't really say I have no motivation to ever touch that series again. Except, I guess, the new ones, but yeah.
It feels like it's made for a younger audience, but it's one of those things that doesn't really hold up if you go back to it when you're older, in a way.
Yeah.
Even though
I mean,
it has supposedly mature content, it is quite juvenile. So to me,
Yes.
I definitely really see like teenage boys really liking it.
yeah.
Although maybe that's a bit like inconsiderate of other people's opinions.
I mean, even as a teenage boy playing it, where you had to like button mash the O button, the circle button, to like make girls orgasm.
Yeah,
This.
that's a very
Yeah,
that's
you
one of the
can-
most immature parts of all. Yeah.
I can only see a 13-year-old kid finding
Yeah.
that as entertainment value.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like 16. And I was already like, oh my god.
Yeah, I lost my virginity in God of War.
In God of War 3, it's like you're doing that, and then there's these two other girls watching and commenting on how good you are at it.
Hell yeah, dude. Made me so hard. Yeah, that's whatever. I mean, but like, I don't mind that type of thing. Like, Duke Nukem 3D, I would describe as juvenile but fun. That's one of my favorite games, and it also has like similar stuff, but
Yeah.
maybe it's less overt. And, yeah, God of War is like a little too much, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I think I did not like God of War when I was a teenager because of my own immaturity too, where I had like a very prudish attitude towards all the violence and stuff, and that made me like dislike it probably more than I should. Although I don't know,
Sure.
maybe I'm wrong because I still kind of dislike it for all the same reasons now.
Yeah, I get that. I personally, I'm not like a huge fan of over-the-top violence, but I can appreciate it. Like, it can be fun. Like, Doom is a great example of like ridiculous over-the-top violence, but like that's what the game's going for, and I like it. It's just like this, again, juvenile but fun. But I don't know. Some games do it well, and some games don't. I don't think God of War does it poorly, but I definitely like it less than like Doom, for example.
Yes, and I agree. I think like I have no issues whatsoever with Doom's over-the-top balance, but I think there is some kind of problem with God of War, although it might be more a tone-related issue.
I think so. I think it's good. Yeah. Way to put it.
And I think part of it is just the protagonist too, because the Doom guy is like silent enough and everything that you can kind of project the fun you're having.
Still won't budge?
You know, just shooting out demons and blowing them up and all that onto him. But God of Kratos is such a joyless fuck the whole time that for me, I think that takes away from it.
It's also like Kratos just has this element of cruelty to him that just makes it less fun, I think. Where it's like Doom is like, it's just like you're killing like demons. You can't really have any sympathy for them. They're just there to be torn apart. It's fine. But in God of War, you're like slaughtering like gods, which are basically just people with superpowers in the game, and you're just ripping their heads off and shit. It's like, oh man, it's like, yo, chill.
Yeah, the God of War 3, there's that part where the guy has the bow or whatever, and he's like offering to give you the bow if you get him out of prison, but instead you burn him alive and take the bow.
Yep.
And then there's that part where you find like a woman who was like Poseidon's concubine or something along those lines, and you like forcibly drag her along while she's like screaming and begging for mercy, and then you like use her corpse to jam up a wheel or something so you can keep a gate open.
Yeah, it's like that's not like the way the game intends for it is to be like super badass, but it's just like such a mismatch between the tone it's trying to portray and what's happening. It's just like
I think it's something like that too, and then it gets even more dumb, I guess, at the end of that game when there's like a story moment about Kratos forgiving himself and stuff. I feel like that's just too incongruous with how much of a fucking bastard he's been throughout the whole game up to that point. For it to really
reminds me
work
of like the real life story of Mark Wahlberg, who blinded an Asian man by throwing rocks at him because he was like racist against Asians or something, and then like he was interviewed about it, and he's like, yeah, I forgave myself, so it's fine.
I remember that.
Like,
ridiculous.
What the fuck? Yeah, as long as you forgive yourself, it's okay.
But I think one of the things that makes it work less well too is that Kratos just like keeps on doing horrible things, and then just right at the end is when he forgives himself. Like you know, it's like 5 minutes since his last atrocity, and he's doing that. You know, he comes off hollow that way.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think that's something that the one reason the new God of War was received so well is that they gave him a little bit more legitimate characterization
Yeah.
And you like they basically wanted you to forget how shitty of a character he was and just like pretend like it's all good now. And from that baseline, the game, moved forward, and I think it worked better. And trying to keep him authentic to how he used to be, because it was just like so stupid.
Such a miserable character.
Yeah, just such an asshole.
Well, in God of War 3 too, there was sort of an effort to do something similar with Pandora, right? Because a big part of the new he has that sort of emotional bond to his son, and that drives his motivations and stuff like that. Whereas God of War 3 did have this arc about him like starting to feel protective of Pandora and stuff. But I guess just the handling of it was quite poor in my opinion, where it kind of felt like he just became attached to her because the script wanted him to.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was very shallow. So Meco, we've been talking over you this whole time. What exactly is going on here? I've kind of lost track of what's happening in the game right now. What's the goal you're going towards here?
Well, nothing much really at the moment. Everybody's just been split around, and they're all just eventually as the story progresses, they'll all start sort of meeting up, and they've all got some sort of connection to each other. Hope, well, without meaning to ruin too much, Hope has a suspicion that like maybe Snow didn't help his mum as well as he could have done. Just to put it lightly. Serah is who Snow is looking for, who's actually, you'll find out later, is Lightning's sister.
Okay.
So
Lightning's sister and Snow's girlfriend. So.
Yeah. So they're it's a lot of interaction.
So Lightning knows because he is her like brother-in-law after fashion.
So
there
will be a lot of connection later on.
Well, so where are you exactly, and what are you fighting towards right now?
I honestly can't give a straight answer. You're just kind of in the middle of, like I said, you're just lost in this thing till later on.
I'm gonna try to explain it, but I don't know if I can. So I think.
Well, if you don't know, that's part of the story. That's fine. I was also totally lost. It's like if you're just in this place and you don't know where you are, that's cool. I just didn't know if I missed something. It is
pretty much that. I don't think they really know too well.
Confusing at this point because there's going to be those flashbacks that cover the last 7 days. And
okay, got it.
Yeah.
Basically, what's happening is the Lightning and Sazh are both caught up in the purge or whatever that's going on.
Yep.
And they've been sort of trying to escape from the army, and then circumstances have kind of led them to being in this particular area.
Okay.
Everything was blowing up or whatever, and they had to get on transports and stuff to go where they could go.
Yeah.
And Snow is leading some kind of resistance against the purge.
Got it. Okay.
That's how he was involved. And he was like, that's why he was with Hope's mom, because Hope and his mom were like among the citizens who were being persecuted, and he was trying to like protect them.
Got it.
And I think
that's good enough for me.
It is supposed to be mysterious as to how Vanille fits into all of this at this point.
Right. Okay. Cool. That's all I needed. Just I'm still lost, but I know that I'm supposed to be lost, so it's okay.
One thing as well, I just want to say with the battle system is obviously at the moment all I'm doing is pressing the X button because there's nothing more I can do. I've got all of 2 abilities, which is attack and blitz, which don't do anything. But the one unique thing about the battle system is you can do what are called chain combos, which build up a stagger meter. And if a stagger meter is full, you do like tons more damage to them after that. But to build up that stagger meter, you need to do these abilities, which is like this blitz here. It's like they're kind of like spells, I guess, but there's not really any mana in this game. Though, well, not till later anyway. Is there any mana? I can't remember now.
I don't think so. No.
So you do that to build. You see that next to the name on the top right, and it's like a bar.
So that monster was just staggered there for a second. It is kind of an unimportant mechanic right now, but once more abilities it does become like a major part of the combat.
Yeah, it's kind of like an intro to how important that becomes later on, because you want to focus more on that. At the moment, you just keep pressing attack because there's not. It doesn't really matter. But later on, like building the stagger meter up is really important if you want to build, do more damage and stuff. And then even later on, you do like switch up. Where you can change the entire current party's abilities of what they can do. So that really plays a strong part later on. Like you can use, like for now, like you can only just do these same attacks with lightning, but then later on you can switch. They're called paradigm shifts, and you can completely switch out how the part reacts. Like lightning could go from being the main attack person to then being the one that uses spells more, or heals, or the healer. Do you know what I mean? Like you can switch it out completely, basically, and it completely
basically,
changes.
the characters have
game.
jobs like in another RPG, but you can change their jobs in the middle of the battle.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And,
All right.
yeah, and that's also a major mechanic of the combat later on. I think a good way to try and explain it quickly is that the intention of this combat system is to de-emphasize like precise commands and make a system that's more about rhythm and timing.
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
the way that's done is quite cool later on, but it's
Yeah.
like really, it's really not actualized in the game at all at this point.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, that's what makes it really fun as well. Is as XDev said, is like it's more tight. Whereas on the other one, it were like turn-based in the older ones, whereas this is it's kind of like real time and turn-based, but it blends it in so well that it's like you need to obviously work out when's the appropriate time to switch it up and when when to be in the defensive mode and when to be in an attack mode and when to mix it up a little bit. And it depends on the situation and that as well, because some bosses really test that with you to see how well you can time things and know the flow of the battle.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. I like that kind of when bosses like really test you. It sounds like the Witcher, the first Witcher game, but like less shitty.
I don't know. I only played like an hour of it, so I don't
yeah. I mean, the combat in there is also like rhythm-based, pseudo turn-based, and like you have different stances you can take, like more defensive, more offensive, that kind of thing.
And I think that's the major problem with this game is that you're not seeing any of that for the first 10 or so hours. You just see bare bones
That's
minimum
a long time.
of just pressing X, and it's like, okay, that's fine. And people like to say it's an easy combat system, but later on it's not, and that's why it's so like awkward to try and explain to people that it does get better. Trust me.
Right.
Yeah, and I think to be fair, it is kind of a common problem in a lot of RPGs is that at the start of the game you have fewer options, so the combat is like less interesting. Like Final Fantasy V actually is another example where for the first hour or so of the game you actually don't have any jobs or anything, so you are just pretty much just mashing your basic attack. But I mean, that's only like an hour as opposed to
That's what I was gonna say. Is like that is common, but not for like 10 hours. I was gonna mention the similar thing about Underrail is like until you get your build kind of online and you're able to, like, for example, a build I'm using is a chemical-based build where you need a like a chemical pistol, and until you get one you just use a regular pistol for the first like 4 hours or so, but it's 4 hours, and after that you're using your actual build with your full combat mechanics as you intend them to be. So for it to be for like 10 hours long is just excessive. So I can understand
that is the key point. Because the intention clearly is to like slowly introduce you to all the mechanics this game has, but he just stretches that out over way longer.
Yeah, that seems that way.
He is here, calling himself a hero.
So they've just been stood there for all that time listening to Snow shouting to himself.
Yeah, and okay, I guess this is already being established in the story is that Pope blames Stowe for his mother's death.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing I say will change what happened.
We could just run away.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's agreeing with that plan, but I'm not sure. Hope is not emotionally prepared to confront Snow at this point, so he and Vanille are just gonna leave, I guess.
Okay then. Oh boy.
One other thing with this as well, which is very different to most previous entries to the game. Fucking hell, that was quick. Is
Yeah.
you only control the one character. The rest of the party do their own thing, but you have to control them again later on through the paradigm shifts and stuff. But if your main character dies when you're controlling, the whole game is game over basically, which is new for Final Fantasy because usually it's a whole
Persona
party.
3.
Yep.
Yeah, with the other ones, it's like the whole party needs to die, whereas this
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, if the main character dies, that's it. But yeah, I've come from Persona, so it weren't that unusual for me, I guess, because that did that a lot on them ones.
That can be bullshit in Persona though. 'Cause sometimes your main character will just get hit with like a death spell, and then you just get like, 2 hours of progress or some shit.
That's what happened to me. That's why I stopped playing Persona 4. It happened to me in a boss fight, and I was like, I do not want to do that again right now or for the next week, and just never got back to it.
See, actually, Omori has that too, where if Omori gets knocked out, it's a game over.
Right.
But that's why they have the Omori does not succumb mechanic. So
Yes,
where if he
so
gets
there's like
hit,
a little
he's
bit of
fine
a-
with 1 HP,
Mm-hmm.
just to make it less frustrating, basically. Because that couldn't really happen with that mechanic
Yeah.
in place. You couldn't just get randomly knocked out by an instant death spell and lose 2 hours of progress. Which
Well,
is
one
good.
thing I was going to mention is like when that one combat didn't, it was literally like 2 moves and you won. Like, I don't mind that combat being so easy, but when you have like a little cutscene before each one, it can get kind of tedious where the combat is so easy it may as well have not happened.
Yeah.
Whereas, like a lot of CRPGs, I'll go back to Underrail because I've been playing it, just what's on my mind. Like, you'll have combat like that where you throw 1 grenade and you win, but it doesn't like cutscene. You just like enter combat and throw the grenade and that's it. It takes like a second. Whereas here it's like a whole thing, but the combat lasts for nothing. So like, what was the point of the theatrics? I guess.
No, I do think that is a recurring problem with Final Fantasy. Like, I agree that it is good in an RPG or really any game to have some combat encounters that you can just get through really fast.
Mhm.
Because, like, actually, I could use Dragon Quest as like a counter example, where later on in the game, like every fight starts to take a long time, and that
Mhm.
also very tedious. But yeah, Final Fantasy will have too many like cinematic camera angles and stuff in the fights. Like Final Fantasy IX, actually, a big problem with that one is every single fight starts with like a dramatic zoom around the arena and stuff.
Yeah.
Camera pan on.
Yeah, and then it just if you get really powerful, it's just one hit, and it's like, okay.
Yeah. Right. Like I get the idea behind it, but yeah, it can be. I guess it'd be nice to be able to skip over that or something.
Mhm.
It was like
Well, I
in
think,
Death
like-
Stranding, where every time you encounter the BTs, you'd have that cutscene play, and it was only until
Oh,
like
yeah.
halfway through the game I'd realize you could turn that off in the Cindy option.
No, you could. That were an update they did later on. That.
Yes,
there's a
right.
lot
It
of
wasn't
people
even in there
complaining about it.
originally. Yeah, because it was like I don't care.
Shit, I think I accidentally. I know, I'm fine. I thought they were
But
going
at
to
least
attack
that's
me. First.
useful because it provides a warning that they're around.
Yeah, I agree, but like once you know how the game works, you can see your little sensor thing act up.
Yeah, that was the
without
problem. Is it
cutscene.
went all slow mo and stuff. So.
Yeah, like you can tell what's happening without the cutscenes, so it's just unnecessary. And sometimes it was like I wasn't even going into a BT area; I was just passing by one. I don't care that they're around because they're not going to be close enough to me, so it's like leave me alone.
Well, it plays out like a cutscene. That's what's annoying. Is that you think, oh, there's a cutscene about to happen because it just zooms in.
Right.
The little detector just comes out really slowly because it's slow mo. But then that was cool the first time, like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then like the next dozen times, it's like, okay, I'll get it now. You know,
Yeah.
Like,
It was literally cool the first time. Every other time, it was like, all right, yeah.
Can't we take it a little slower? Says Hope. Always whining.
Oh boy,
come on, I'm tired of walking forward and pressing X.
you pussy.
Yeah, I do think actually one of the probably bigger problems with this game is how melodramatic Hope is going to be for the
Yeah.
next little while.
I kind of like, I don't mind it as much when the secondary character that's whining is useful. Like if they're actually helping me, but they're being whiny, it's like, okay, that's annoying, but I understand why they're with me. But if it's like they're totally doing nothing, it's like, yeah, you can just wait here. Like, just shut up and sit here while I clear the level, and then I'll come back for you. Like,
At
there's
least
no
he
reason for you
helps
to be
out
with me.
bring the combat, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, he does. That's fair. It's like Ashley in RE4, but I know she was intentionally, like
Yeah.
gameplay mechanics, so I can't really
She was
complain. but-
hosted. I never
Yeah.
found it too annoying to keep her safe.
No, it was never too bad. But I definitely
Here we go,
appreciated when I
boys.
played on
Starting to
pro
link up.
difficulty. Oh shit, it's snow.
We're in the three-man party now. That's the first. Well,
Oh,
with the
yeah.
main characters.
Right.
They got surrounded by Seath, which Vanille has pointed out are Lassie who failed.
Okay, okay.
That will be elucidated later on. What
Right,
the implications
yeah,
of that are.
These are all vocabulary words in my brain waiting to be defined.
Well, I mean, Seath are basically just these zombies.
Right, yeah, I got that. And the Lassie are something, I'm not sure, but it's been brought up a lot. Very
Yeah.
important. Oh, Hope has collapsed.
I think I'll install a mod later where all the characters are switched to the Final Fantasy VII characters. So it might make it a little bit more, you know, enjoyable for some people.
For XDeath, because I don't have any connection to them. But
So Lightning would be Cloud, and
Right,
Barrett
yes.
would swap with Sazh, obviously, but who else would be?
Tifa would be Snow because of the punching and stuff.
Tifa with Snow? Yeah, that makes sense.
She's here somewhere, along with that foul sea. I gotta find her
Maybe
and set her free.
Yuffie instead of Vanille.
Why do you want to help
Yeah,
us see?
yeah.
They're the enemy. How can we
Sid would
feel
be
us
what's
see?
her face later on. Ban.
Bang. Okay, sure. Spear.
That's insane.
What about Hope?
Yeah.
Probably.
Red.
Gotta do something, right?
Oh, maybe Vincent, because Vincent is emo, which is
Yeah, I mean,
similar.
he's a bit whiny as well about like what
Yeah.
happened, so.
That's probably the best fit. Is Vincent instead of Hope.
Why is this happening to me? When they found the foul sea the other day, we were just visiting Bono.
the contrast of Hope's melodrama to Snow's not giving a shit is actually really funny.
That guy.
Probably shouldn't leave them alone.
And he wants to help us see.
Hey again.
Hey,
I think it's like my first exposure to Troy Baker as well.
you gotta talk to
Which
him.
one's Troy Baker?
If you
Snow.
don't take
Snow.
the
No,
chance,
okay, that's what I guessed. I don't have the audio.
Oh, then again, I suppose you could say Kanji, because he did voice of Kanji in Persona 4, but
Okay.
Let's go.
he always plays the blonde, cool characters.
You don't have
He
the
does,
audio?
yeah.
You're not watching the Discord stream?
Yeah, I'm just watching the Twitch.
Oh, okay, why?
I don't know.
What's got an
I
issue?
don't have an answer to that. I'll hop on the Discord.
My
I originally was gonna play other games while watching, but I'm
She's
not
Lassie.
even, so yeah, I'll
Yeah.
just get on this. There we go. Alright, I have it.
The foul sea has her captive, but I'll find her.
Is she still... Hey, what was her focus? When she became a Lassie, what did the foul sea order her to do? It wasn't blow up Cocoon or anything like that, was it?
This is all gibberish. Whoa. It's a gateway to hell. Oh, no.
Listen to me.
Turned off.
When a person gets cursed by a foul sea, they become a Lassie, and they get given a focus, right?
Okay, good to know.
How do I put this? If they don't carry it out, Lassie end up as one of those things.
Okay. That makes sense.
What
Fair
I'm
enough.
saying is, if your sister's gone that far, I mean, she might still... How can I... Oh, man. There's no way to turn a Lassie back into a human. Even if she completes her focus, there's no changing her fate. She'll live her life as a foul sea slave.
It's anime tropes.
Yes, I was gonna say, I was about to just fucking start on that. Why do they fucking have to always make
Just
noises?
say it. Any Lassie, anyone who might ever become a Lassie should be wiped off the face of Cocoon. It's people like you that started the purge in the first place.
Whoa.
I think it's a bit racist there, Lightning. It's like...
What do you mean, you people?
Okay, well, so Sazh has actually just provided us with quite a bit of exposition.
Yes, I appreciate it.
So basically, the fal'Cie are these kind of giant mechanical demigods, and a l'Cie is a human who has been tasked to complete some kind of quest called a focus by the fal'Cie.
Yep.
And if a l'Cie does not complete its task, they turn into a Seath, which is basically just a zombie.
Yep. All makes sense. I appreciate the exposition.
Yeah.
And as
That is a
put
kind of a
it's,
common criticism of this game, is that it's hard to understand because of all the terms. But when I first played it, at least, I found it not as hard as maybe you might think. But that's partially because I grew up watching anime and playing JRPG, so I'm kind of exposed to it at this point.
I think the issue is with it more so is that it's all this terminology for such a basic plot. Really, it's like you could just condense it down a bit more rather than use these. I mean, it's not really. I mean, it's a decent story. It's not amazing. It's not like the most memorable in the franchise, but you know.
Yeah,
it does
I think it has issues, but it does also have parts I like.
Sure.
It's probably more needlessly convoluted and melodramatic than most Final Fantasy stories already are, which is saying something.
Yeah. No, I definitely I get where you're coming from. Is when I play say a fantasy RPG that replaces the word orc or whatever, or elf with its own words. It's why? You're just making it tedious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you're not doing anything unique. They're literally still elves and orcs and shit. You're just being pretentious. But inherently, I don't mind the extra vocab. I'm not finding it hard. I literally listening to that explanation there. It's okay, it makes sense to me now.
Yes. Well, some people say that you need to read the in-game glossary to follow the story, which I don't think is true, but you do maybe need to pay relatively close attention to the cutscenes.
That's fair.
Which is fine for me because I have the walkthrough, the soundtrack that comes with an extra bit of lore. It's got a separate disc for the. It's all in Japanese. I don't understand any of it, but.
Okay.
But I suppose if I learned Japanese, I'd be able to learn a bit more about 30.
Okay, cool. Maybe that was it. They were trying to incentivize you to learn Japanese.
Yeah, or look up a translation.
Yeah.
Better hurry up and find that fal'Cie.
It's part of Nier Automata's backstory being communicated through an opera.
Oh yeah, that's always weird. The amount of extra material that you sometimes need to go through.
Yeah,
it's not just a Japanese thing either, though, because Halo has the novels and all that.
Yeah, but it's the same thing I think between Nier and Halo. It's you don't need any of that. It's just if you like the lore, there's more of it. So
yeah,
I think it's okay.
I do find it quite funny how I've only got the walkthrough just for collection purposes, but it does make me laugh how the walkthrough is trying so desperately to make the first few chapters of this sound really intense and interesting as far as the gameplay goes. Go forward into this area and use this attack. It's just press X. You could just literally cover a whole page and say just press X for the first 10 hours.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think it gets a bit more interesting.
Right.
Imagine if that was the guide. You just open it and says, just press X for the first 10 hours. Okay, now hour 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come back to this guide after chapter 11 or something, and then there you go.
Just press X until you get.
Fair enough. Ghoul.
I mean, the presentation on some of the stuff's great. I mean, I'll have to show you some pictures of the soundtrack that I've got, but it's in a nice box and it's got really nice. It's got an art book that comes with it, and it's a little short art books and that. It's really well presented. So you can tell they, love their own franchise. If you know what I mean. Everything looks very polished and nice, and that is just, feels a little bit a kick to the face when you play it and you're like, this isn't as intense as I was expecting.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, it feels like I'm playing Resident Evil at the moment. But...
Oh, this is a gas. Which is an upgrade from a ghoul.
Big boy, yeah.
I suppose I'm a little bit of a hypocrite because Persona stuff was the same thing, really, as this for first dungeon or the first intro to the dungeon on 5 and that of just pressing X. But as I said earlier, it's a common trope with JRPG.
I think
it's a
some
common
people
trope in
have
any.
complained about Persona games taking a while to get going. Like I think somebody was playing Persona 4 and was like commenting on how long it took for much to happen.
Yeah,
There's a lot of cutscenes of like getting introduced to the other kids at school and stuff like that, and then the combat mechanics also get introduced pretty slowly.
Yeah, that is painful because I've completed Persona 4 Persona 5 like 4 times now, and the second time it weren't as bad, but then like the third time I was like, fuck me, it takes so long for it to actually, to get more party members and for it to actually start letting me use all the, mechanics in the game and that. It's like, fuck me.
I think Persona 5 has more of a hook with its story though, because you're like getting accused of murder right at the start and all that stuff. And
spoilers.
Well, spoilers at the very start of the game.
Sure.
And you got that scene where you confront the bad guy and get blamed for what he's doing and stuff. Like Persona, Persona 4 at the start of the game, you're kind of just like a kid at school and you're meeting the other kids at school. And
3 is the same as 4, kind of in that regard.
No, 3 is more of like is a bit more of a social outcast is the main protagonist, whereas on 3, I mean, but on 4 he's more just like the cool kid and everybody wants to be his friend instantly type thing.
Or you're like the new kid, right?
Well, that's also
you're the new kid.
Part of Persona 5 because you have that you have a criminal record when you go to the new
Okay.
So you're automatically seen as like the scary kid at school. And that's why the first guy that you meet friends with is also like an outcast who dyes his hair blonde and annoys all the teachers and stuff.
Just to say, look how awful this is. I'm walking out of one battle to walk into another to walk into another.
Yeah.
This could all be condensed down into one big battle, but for some reason I have to I'm going to quit this battle, walk down here, another one here. It's just
at least appreciate that it doesn't have random encounters, so you could walk past some of these guys.
I guess, but if I get stabbed in the back, then I'm going to have to go through that.
Considering the hallways are kind of tight, it's harder to avoid them.
Yeah,
but for a regular player, they're not going to do that. They're just going to think there's a reason why you have to keep fighting all these.
Right, they're going to want the XP. Like, they wouldn't know that, you don't really need the XP or whatever. Or, they doesn't give you XP, never.
Yeah, at this point in the game, though, you don't even get any kind of character development out of these fights.
You can't avoid these ones.
Oh, yeah.
See, I think maybe it's because I played too many RPGs. My first instinct whenever I play one is to find out how I can minimize the number of fights I have.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. I do that. Same thing.
I'm more the type to just grind the fuck out of stuff, so...
But it depends on the RPG. Like, some I'll play and it's, like, obviously intended for you to kill everything, but, like, again, playing Underrail, it's like, if you can avoid some random-ass group of bandits, do it. Like, there's no benefit. Actually, Underrail has my favorite XP system of all time, which is, you don't get XP... Well, you have a choice. You can choose, like, a classic type of XP where you get it from combat and quests. There's the one I use is called Oddity XP, where you find XP by, like, finding objects in, like, trash cans and shit. So you get XP purely from exploring, and, like, some enemies drop the objects, and you also get XP from quests, but it's, like, it encourages exploration and actually discourages combat, which I think is really cool, because even in RPGs like Fallout, where you can avoid combat and talk your way out of things, you get the quest XP, but you lose the XP on combat, where Underrail goes all the way and is like, the combat doesn't even matter. Like, you just need to solve the quest. If you want to do it through combat or persuasion or whatever, you still get the XP just through exploration and completing the quest. It's really cool.
Well, and that kind of relates back to the idea that fights should be something to be avoided, right?
Yes, exactly.
You have that idea sort of implicit in the game, where it's supposed to be this cruel, brutal world where everybody's killing each other, so if you can, like, stop that to some extent, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And but it's not quite conveyed through the mechanics, I guess, because you get experience and loot out of the fights.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Underrail has the same... that's your first 3-star, man. But yeah, Underrail has the same thing, but, like, the gameplay mechanics also supported, which I think, like, some people say it's, like, the future of CRPG XP, which is, like, I don't know if that's true, but I think it would be actually really cool if a lot of RPGs went in that kind of direction, because I think it's a cool way to do it, or at least have that option.
Well, another game that does that, that conveys that idea that a fight is pointless through like the XP system is actually Omori again, where
Yeah, yeah.
when you go back to the real world, you stop gaining XP for fights, and that's part of how it conveys that those
Something
like
should
fights
die?
you're having with the gang kids are not a good thing at all.
Right. Disco Elysium has that too, where I mean there is no combat, but you get XP through exploring and like noticing things and
Here we
talking to
go,
people.
guys. Everybody's connecting here. Everybody's getting together.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Here's another very important scene for the story where we found
Serah.
Serah, who is again his Lightning's sister and Snow's girlfriend.
I like it how she says, "There's my hero," and it was Lightning that fucking found her.
Yeah. So she's the LC.
Yeah, she's a Lassie, yes.
LC or whatever. I only recently got audio. So.
I'm
Yeah.
You couldn't protect her. It's your fault. She can save us. Serah, you can save us.
Do your job, Serah.
Save
This guy needs to shave.
Cocoon.
Save Cocoon?
So the world is called Cocoon. That's definitely not foreshadowing or anything, right?
Leave it to me.
No.
You'll see. I'll protect
Okay.
Cocoon. I'll save everyone.
Somehow, I'll make things right.
No, I will.
Just relax.
Thank you.
Whoa! Serah, you come down from there right now.
I expect like Hope to just run up and stab Snow in the back with a knife.
Now that would be a good plot.
Well,
Fucking asshole.
just you wait.
Alright, she's turning into crystals. Whoa.
Yes.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Serah! Serah!
Why is she turning to crystal?
We'll see who fulfill their focus, are transformed into crystal, and gain eternal life.
Oh, thank you for the exposition.
Serah, sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams?
My favorite
She's
type
not
of like
sleeping.
story explanation where like the characters have no idea what's going on. They just like, what is this? Like,
It's always nerdy.
it's
when
just
they
like
tell
it's
them.
just like the stories you heard as a kid, and then like explain everything for the audience.
See who fulfilled their
Oh,
focus,
thanks.
turn to crystal and gain eternal life. It's
Yes.
the same with Serah. Eternal life. She's not
He's
dead.
re-explaining it.
Serah's my bride to be. I promise to be hers
What?
forever.
How old is
God,
she?
I don't care
This
how many
fucking
years
dialogue's
I
more
have to
cringy
wait.
than that.
Bro, she's like 12. Oh god. Okay.
I think she's like 18, and I don't know how old
All right,
she is,
all
but
right.
She's
in the
no,
early young.
she's 1,000 years old in dragon years, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Becoming a
It's like
Lassie
she seemed like a
really
kid, but
mean
alright.
losing everything?
Okay, I guess the more interesting part of this, for me at least, is that so what it said is that Lassie who fails to fulfill their focus becomes a zombie, right? And then
Yep.
a Lassie who succeeds at their focus turns into crystal, and then it said and gains eternal life. But that second part's kind of suspect at this point, so it
Yeah.
seems like it's a really crappy situation where you're damned if you do and damned if you don't once you become
Right.
Lassie.
Yeah.
Leave no trace. The pulse vestige never existed.
Pulse vestige. Whoa. Alright. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
What's happening?
So we still I didn't miss anything, right? We still don't know what her focus was.
No,
Okay, got it.
That's what the patch was, right?
just that she seems to have fulfilled it.
Getting everything from pulse
Okay.
off Cocoon. Dead or alive, it's all the same.
We can't stay here. They'll kill us.
Yes.
I'll be right back. Hold on.
Accidentally breaks around.
Where you going?
Date with the Foul C. Got some things to talk about.
What? You gonna ask it to help her? Are you out of your mind, kid? That thing wants to chew us up and spit us out. Well, what do you want me to do? What?
Lightning?
Here we go.
I forgot about that. If you spin the control stick around really fast, she gets tired with the player and actually like groans.
It's fine.
Probably could have skipped this as well, but for some reason I felt like.
Yeah. I was surprised that you went and fought that creature because my instinct would have been just to run around it.
Yeah.
I wanted the 5-star. I'd have to make it up for the last one where I got 3.
That's right. That's an average of 4 now.
Let's see how many I can dodge then. Oh. Oh, we were in a box then. I need to go get that.
Yeah, you'll
Okay.
miss the trophy otherwise. Oh, you're not allowed to open it when there's monsters nearby?
Yeah. But I think if you do this... No, I can't. No. But I'm gonna have to fight it, boys.
Yes, there is a trophy at stake.
Need that trophy. I probably already played PS3, but... I really would like to see them do a remake of 9. I mean, I want one of 8 just because that's my personal favourite, despite people hating it. But I really like to see one of 9 because I think the atmosphere of that one is be interesting to see.
They have to finish the 7 remake first.
Yeah, I was gonna say with the rate that they're going at.
I love Final Fantasy IX. It's one of my favorite games ever, but I guess for me, I'd rather just still have the original and not have the remake.
I suppose when I say remake, I mean like how I'd see a remake, not completely changing everything about the game and calling it a remake. But
yeah, because
well, they did that with RE2 and it worked. So I mean, different company, but
yeah, that's the issue. I don't know.
It can work, but yeah.
I don't know if I trust Square Enix to do a good remake of Final Fantasy IX at this point.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and hop off because I gotta be up pretty early. But
okay.
Yeah.
So I think I've been streaming 2 hours now, so we'll in a bit I'll probably call it anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you guys have fun wrapping up, and I'll see you next time maybe.
Yep.
All right.
Sure. Bye bye.
Please, turn her back.
Yeah, this will be a decent time to wrap it up. I think after the fight, it will give you a chance to save the game, and that could be a good stopping point. Because I think if we go past that, we'll get caught up in a lot of cutscenes.
Like this thing gives a damn what we want.
I think it starts opening up a slight bit more after this anyway. So.
I think you get your first couple of jobs and stuff, but not the full set.
Yeah.
So a little later.
And it's people who are dying.
Serah told us to save Cocoon. That means this thing needs to die.
Too bad though, because I actually did want to ask Mr. A what his overall first impression of Final Fantasy XIII was.
It'll have just been confusing, not something I'd play.
Yeah. I guess that's probably what we should, if he does join for the next stream, we should start with that, asking him what his first impression of it was last time.
I mean, I've been meaning to get around to playing it again anyway, because I really want to have another go with this battle system. Because
yeah.
You know, I haven't personally played anything that. I think I played because Kaoru were playing it, and I would open her through one of bosses and stuff, and it reminded me of how good the battle system was, and I was like, oh, I really want to get back into this again, but I can't be bothered with the start. So
yeah. Well, I think it is a good game for something like this because it has like good and bad aspects that we can talk over and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if a game's just like unquestionably good or bad, maybe that's less interesting.
These things, might as well use it.
Thanks.
I think Sazh is my favorite character in this game.
Yeah, he seems to be like the one with the most common sense out of any. He's not like rational like the rest of it. Sorry, he is rational, so he's not as oh dear, but he does a lot of damage, I forgot.
I think Hope's one of the most stupid and irrational stuff to start the game. The whole Operation Nora thing is probably like the low point of the story. I do kind of like how Lightning becomes a surrogate big brother figure to Hope, though.
Much appreciated.
I think this boss just requires you to pay more attention to your healing a bit more, which is, I think I'm going to go through a lot of these potions in this battle. Since I've got no healer on the thing.
Does it have a mechanic where, like, if you attack a center part while the arms are still alive, the arms will counter or something?
I think that is this, but it doesn't say until you've actually done the. I think you have to find out. I think there's an ability that does it, but I think you have to find out through just trial and error before you find out which.
It's like notes unremarkable.
The what? Sorry.
It's like notes unremarkable about the hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't remember quite how this boss works, but now it's initiating regeneration. It said, so it looks like it will stop attacking for a while to revive the arms when you kill them.
Yeah, I'm sure you're supposed to just like suppress it as much as you can, and then then does this shit again.
Yeah, maybe like if you hit it a certain amount of times while it's doing that regeneration, and then just give you reason to kill the arms first, and then affect the body really down. I don't know if it's actually better, right? Because maybe you save time by just stacking the body really time. I don't know.
But I'll give it a go. I can't remember, it's been so long since I've played them.
Yeah, I know, I think you can kind of just do whatever for this boss, too.
See, it's barely for regenerating anything, so just keep attacking it. So.
I think the regeneration just means reviving the arms. I don't think it actually regenerates health. It kind of seems like Sazh and Hope will just attack it or Snow rather, just attack it every year. Yeah.
I wish they'd attack other things rather than just whatever I attack.
Yeah, I mean sometimes that would be practical. Oh, you lost.
I can't stop now.
We're just about to heal and it slapped me. I was like, oh, well, it won't do enough attacking. Damn.
I guess you should take down the arms.
Yeah. Well, that was fun. First death.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody lose that fight before.
No, neither have I.
Can you skip the cutscene?
Yeah.
That's good.
That
was one of the really shitty aspects of Final Fantasy X was that you can't skip the cutscenes. If you lose a boss, you have to watch the whole cutscene again. Some of them are long as hell. Like they're like a 10-minute cutscene before the bosses. Yeah, you take down the arms really fast.
Yeah, I think
it
that's what
probably
you're
is
supposed to do,
optimal.
but
Yeah.
I thought, oh, it's got a tiny bit of health left, I'll be fine, and then it
Yeah.
fucking slapped me, and oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, I think it's much more efficient to just attack the arms looking at it. I think it might even counter if you attack the body while the arms are up, because when you've been just attacking the arms, it seems like it doesn't attack very much. Whereas when you're attacking the body with the arms up, it's taking your health down really fast.
I'll just do this, I'll best be safe, because that screwed me over.
Yeah.
Dying to a tutorial boss.
Yeah, like you only lost a little bit of health off snow this whole time this time around. To be fair, it doesn't explain that stuff. In Final Fantasy VII with the Scorpion, Cloud does tell you that it will do a big counter attack. You attack when his tail is up.
I also forget because I'm used to, I always used to have like a healer just set in like my normal attack mode, so it was just a lot easier to get them automatically defend me.
Yeah, you never really have to use items later on because you just get somebody to heal you. Or for emergencies, basically.
My best heal.
Yeah, don't want snow getting knocked out. I think that's the right call. That took out over half your health.
Yeah, I know, that's right, bastard.
Yeah, I mean, it was can kill you pretty quickly. Under the right circumstances.
Right, hopefully this should be it.
Yeah, I think you got him.
Yeah.
This is the first time strategy has been involved in this combat.
Yeah.
Where are we?
I think it was the one particular boss on the bridge that always infuriated me. That one was quite difficult.
Vandalus.
I think so. I think I like the first test of the new system, like with the system actually coming into play, where you actually utilize it properly. That was infuriating.
Yeah.
Because you had to just switch constantly. You had to make sure you were on the ball and always switching.
Oh, do you mean the big like gunship thing that you fight?
No, I don't. It's not. It's later on. I think it's like one of the first main bosses. I forget his name because they've all got weird names on
I
here.
think you might mean Barthandalus,
yeah.
You fight him multiple times. That's one
I think it's like the first time you really encounter him. He turns into this big robot thing, and it's just so. It was so difficult the first time I tried doing it. Then it was what I would have actually got stuck on, but because I'd played before, I knew how to do it. So I was like, right, I think this is how you do it.
Yeah, I remember the fights against him being some of the harder parts. Actually, I've never finished this game. My brother did.
Oh, you never finished it? I thought you had.
No, I haven't. I played a decent amount of it on my brother's Xbox. I think it was new, and then I got PS3 version and played part of it.
I see.
Probably would have finished it back in the day if I had done my own system. But because of my brothers, I had to go into his room and stuff to play it. And I just kind of ended up making it impossible to finish. But I was really, really enjoying it at the time. I think that was partially just because I was like 15 and had lower standards, though.
I still think it holds up well. Like I said, it's just one of those games where it just takes a while to just start on.
When the future was clear.
I'd still vouch for the combat for sure. I guess it's the story where I have more misgivings.
And lose myself in happier days.
Alright, so I think there might be a good time to end.
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna have to watch a lot of cutscenes if we try to go on past this point, so it probably is best to call it here.
Yep, so that was the first, 2 hours of Final Fantasy XIII? And then it's still another 8 hours before anything actually happens, so...
Yeah. Not the best showcase of the game's good points, but hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I did plan on completing this again anyway, so we'll hopefully get through it.
It was a nice long series for this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's about 60 hours long or something, the game.
Yeah, something like that. It's not short by any means.
No. Right, well, thank you for listening or joining. I think we had a couple of messages from Hyper that I missed that said, "Oh yeah, Lightning, can't wait for Mothers being strong."
Yes. Thank you, Hyper. I'm sorry I didn't read your comments earlier. I thought from like the very beginning.
Right, and well, I don't know. I might stream tomorrow, maybe. Depends on when I'm actually up. Right. So
Tomorrow, as in Monday.
yes, I'm just trying to think because I've lost track of my days, but I'll try and stream a bit more regular because I want to switch between this. I'll probably end up switching between this and 14, so I'll stay in the Final Fantasy vibes.
Cool.
I don't really want to stream Final Fantasy 14 because it's not really a game to stream.
Possibly if you're doing raids or something.
Yeah, but at the moment I'm doing jobs of just mining and stuff. So
yeah, probably not the most interesting to watch.
so we'll leave it there then.